I'm lucky to be here with Ricou Browning, the great Ricou Browning, who folks will know from Creature from the Black Lagoon, of course, Flipper, Sea Hunt, The Aquanauts, Creature Walks Among Us, Revenge of the Creature, and on and on and on. A lot of great stories from Ricou Browning's life. He's had a wonderful career. And first and foremost, I guess we want to start at the beginning for you, which would have been, in your movie career, would have been 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea for Disney.
Yeah, that was the first feature I worked in. I was one of the divers in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. We filmed in Nassau in the Bahamas, off a little key called Goulding Key, beautiful reef, and they had the cameras set up on tripods. They didn't have free swimming cameras then. And each scene, they just had to set up each scene with a tripod. And it took us a long time to do the film, but it was a lot of fun. And the water was crystal clear.
So you were working professionally, I understand, in Florida at the time as an underwater performer and an above water performer as well. You were producing shows and organizing shows.
Yes. And we did a underwater show, which is still going on, at Weeki Wachee Springs. They call it the Spring of the Mermaids. They've got girls swimming underwater with air hoses, and they do underwater ballet and all sorts of crazy tricks like drinking underwater, eating underwater.
Things that are not easy to do.
Yeah, of course. And so I worked there a considerable length of time. And then I did some diving shows, springboard and tower diving. And I attended Florida State University. And that's where I was when I got the job for the Creature Show.
So this began, I guess, what I understand, Jack Arnold and Scotty Wellborn flew down to Florida, and they were supposed to meet with somebody who couldn't meet them. And this is a friend of yours, and this friend called you up and said, could you show them around a little bit to some of the areas to scout locations for the movie that's upcoming, which was to be Creature from the Black Lagoon?
That's correct. It wasn't Jack Arnold that came down. It was Scotty and some other people. And Scotty asked me if I'd swim in front of the camera to get some perspective of the size of a human being to fish and eels and grass and whatever. And so I did. And then a couple of weeks later, I got a call from Jack Arnold, who was in California. And he said, how would you like to be a monster? And I said, a monster what? He said, we're doing a show about an underwater monster, and we love the way you swim. You got the job if you want it. I said, okay, I'll take it.
Fantastic.
So that's how it started.
Yeah, and the film is fantastic. Now, the creature costume, from what I understand, was actually molded over your body.
Well, yes, it started out that way. They were putting a leotard on me, and then they would glue pieces. And they started gluing pieces on my chest. And the first piece they put on with the glue, a couple of minutes later, it started getting hot inside. And what it was, the glue was setting up, and it gets hot when it sets up. And it started burning me. And I said to Jack Keevan, who was the makeup artist, I said, this thing is burning. He said, oh, it's just drying. Pretty soon I said, it's really burning. And I said, either you take this off or I got to tear it off. It's burning me badly. So they took it off, and I took the leotard off, and I had blisters on my chest. So then they made a mold of my body, and then they put the leotard on that, and then they glued the pieces on the leotard on the body mold.
And I understand you had some suggestions for the costume to help you swim in it, because it wasn't the easiest. I guess the feet, is that correct, were kind of loose?
Yeah, the feet were very loose, and so I suggested that they use a swim fin and then build them the feet around. They couldn't do feet around that, but they couldn't do that. So they built it a little stiffer and made it a little shorter, and it helped me swim a little bit. And the hands the same way.
Couldn't have been easy to swim in because you didn't have a mask under there. You had to swim to air tubes while you were actually performing. I understand you had 4 guys under the water with you that were helping you. Safety men, right?
Yeah.
That were making sure that you had access to air, or you could get air quickly if you needed it while you were under there.
Correct.
How long were you under there for those moments of shooting? How long was that?
Well, we were in and out of the water all day long, and we would rehearse something on the barge. And then we'd go down and attempt to do it. And if we didn't do it correctly, we'd come back and talk it again and then go back in and do it. Vision was one of the worst things with the suit. The eye sat about an inch from my eye, and it's like looking through a keyhole. and I was no face mask and no goggles, so vision was blurred. So it was very difficult to see. But that was one of the most difficult things using the suit.
One of the things I always think about when I'm watching the film is I know Florida, and I know there's alligators and things that are not so friendly in the water there. Was that a concern for you while you were filming?
It wasn't a concern for me because I had too many concerns of my own to worry about some other animal.
Air tubes.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. And of course, the lady who was swimming above you, the great Ginger Stanley, a TV personality, one of the world's foremost underwater performers. And from what I understand, she had the world record, which you assisted with for underwater swimming, for length, for distance.
Yeah,
and you helped her with some air tanks while she was doing that.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
And so tell me about Ginger. You knew her. You worked with her previously.
Ginger was a mermaid at Weeki Wachee Springs, where the girls breathe from an air hose and they do underwater ballet and they drink underwater and eat underwater and all kind of crazy things. And that's where I first met Ginger. And then later, she left Weeki Wachee and moved to Ocala at Silver Springs and was secretary to the public relations director as well as a swimmer in the springs. And I also went up there to create shows underwater at night. And they didn't have a theater, but they were going to build one. But they never did, and we never did a night show. But I did work there for a considerable length of time with Bill Ray.
So she, most people don't know this, but Julie Adams, she did the shoots in Hollywood, the above the water stuff. But Ginger was the one, when you're looking up from the bottom of the water and watching that graceful, beautiful swimming, that's Ginger. That's Ginger, and the two of you together, swimming together. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful shot.
Yeah, it turned out well.
Very well. And there's also another beautiful shot in the film. One of these shots that people recognize from the film and remember from the film, which is a shot of a cigarette being thrown in the water, and then the cigarette kind of floats down, trails down, and you kind of catch the creature in frame. Now I understand that you might have had something to do with that shot.
That was my idea.
That was your idea.
Julie really didn't smoke, but at that time she did it for the scene. She was on the railing or the deck, and she throws the cigarette, and they see the cigarette hit, and then they just pan down, and there's a creature in the film.
It's an epic shot. It's one of those shots that you understand, the environmentalist, I guess.
Yeah.
You understand what the thrust of the movie is.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a very King Kong-esque type of, It's one of those shots that will live on forever, well past me. It's wonderful. The color of the suit, was it really yellow?
No,
It wasn't.
green.
It was green. So the underwater suit was the same. It was a green suit that was used.
The underwater suit and the topside suit were identical in color.
Okay.
And they would touch it up every now and then, but that was all.
Mm-hmm. Revenge of the Creature, you had to contend with Vicious Tortoise that tried to take your foot off.
Yeah, tortoise bit the heel of the foot off, and it happened to be the last pair of flipper feet that I had for the show. And the makeup men and the safety men had to chase him down, get the piece out of his mouth, and come back, take my foot off, take the thing up, dry it, glue it back on so I could do the next scene.
That was just a one-time thing, that the tortoise didn't keep bothering you after that?
No.
Well, that's good. And of course, John Agar and Laurie Nelson in Revenge. Did you have much access to them? That was shot in Hollywood at that time?
No, the second feature was shot all in Florida.
Oh, the whole thing was in Florida.
At Marineland Studios near St. Augustine, Florida, and underwater at Silver Springs. And they were great people to work with. And John Agar and I became very close friends and did some things years later. I did a feature called Mr. No Legs, and I hired John to play one of the leads in it. And it was a low-budget film, shot on 16 millimeter, and we had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, John's one of those faces that is easily recognizable, and he has this amazing spirit that comes through in films. He's just he looks like this extremely friendly, fun-loving guy in everything.
He was just that.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
It comes through. Yeah, it comes through. I enjoy very much that. I enjoy Revenge because of him and because of you, and Laurie Nelson it is also.
Right. And John Brownfield was a super guy.
Yeah, fantastic cast. It's a fun movie. And then there was The Creature Walks Among Us,
right,
which is the one that a lot of people like to kind of dismiss because it got away from the earlier series a little bit. And
well, it was each film was lower budgeted, so it didn't have a very big budget. And as far as I was concerned, it had very little underwater in it. But I wasn't involved in any of the topside stuff, so I wasn't there.
Yeah, there are some fun. There are some fun that Jeff Morrow is very good in it, and there's some good performances in it. But as a creature film, it's a little bit disappointing to some people. You worked some underwater scenes in. You were underwater director for the Thunderball.
Yes.
And the remake, Never Say Never Again, and the Thunderball was also in Nassau.
Yes, all the underwater for both shows were done in Nassau. Mm-hmm. And in other words, Never Say Never Again was very close to the location where we did most of the Thunderball stuff. So I enjoyed doing both of them. And Sean Connery was a great guy to work with.
The most memorable scenes from Thunderball for me are those underwater scenes, especially that epic final battle scene. That must have been extremely difficult to coordinate.
Well, it was, and we had the great thing about it. We had a great budget. So we took our time to do it well, and I consider it one of the best things I've done underwater.
Yeah,
so.
It's wonderful. It comes across really well. And Sean Connery underwater was competent. He was a diver himself.
Yeah, he was good, but he was even better in the second film, Never Say Never Again. He did a lot of his own stuff. Mm-hmm. He was easy to work with, a gentleman. Everything about him I liked.
It's a fine film, and your work in it's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Your work generally is fantastic, and you've meant a lot to a lot of people, myself included, and a lot of our listeners included as well.
Well, thank you.
And thank you, actually. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Ricou, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and the best to you.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you
very
so
much.
Thank
All
you.
right.